Yes.
What if they also paid the $60,000 note during the year to Mr. Adams?
The $60,000 note is actually a separate item. That isn't because it's a loan from a shareholder. You would see that the shareholder would get basis for that, but the issue with that, it's different from accounts payable. Accounts payable relate to operations of the business. It's a different element. Okay. So yeah, that goes to 0. We allocate everything else out. Is it important that the C corporation has, that the S corporation has C corporate E and P? It doesn't matter for the 1374 tax. The 1374 tax does not require E and P, which is distinct from the tax on excess passive investment income. Yes?
So I just want to be sure.
Yep.
The -50, the 200,000, that -50 comes from the 2006 payables that got
Yep.
paid in 2007.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. Okay? Pretty comfortable with that? Any questions? Yes?
So any other notes payable similar to the AP might also reduce that if it was a similar situation?
If you had something like that in a similar situation, yeah.
Operating.
Yeah. You would. This question's a little odd just because, we didn't raise the issue of accounts payable during the lectures. It's not really something that I make an emphasis of because it's an odd item, frankly. It's more of an exception than anything else. I wouldn't expect to see any more of it. So, good to know for practice. So, no, I mean, I think the bigger thing to understand, really the critical thing with the 1374, it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. Understand the basic mechanics of how this works. The limitations are the key. I mean, understand your limitation for Newbig. Understand your limitation for taxable income. Know how those apply. Know that you've got a 10-year period, a 10-year window, your recognition period. Outside of that, remember what the policy behind this is. Why do they have this tax in the first place? It's just to avoid having people take a C Corp with a bunch of built-in gain property, flip the switch to be an S Corp, and then avoid your 2 layers of tax. They don't want you to be able to do that. So effectively, they wanted to come up with a mechanism that would allow them to tax built-in gain or appreciation that relates to a C corporate period. But they did it in a very favorable way. I mean, you can understand the policy. The policy makes a lot of sense. You can understand why Congress wouldn't want people to be able to just file a 2553 and then avoid a second level of tax. But the way they've done it, by having the limitations on net unrealized built-in gain, you're effectively able to offset gains against losses here. So this limitation, as well as the taxable income limitation, are very favorable. So it's a tax that you can work with as long as you can plan. There's a lot that you can plan into. And even if you're turning gains in a more complex fact pattern, if you're turning gains, but you also had properties that were a net unrealized built-in loss property, trigger those at the same time. You can offset the one against the other because you're looking year by year. You're not looking at each of your gain items. You're looking at the net of your recognized built-in gain versus recognized built-in losses that relate to that that C corporate period. Okay? I don't think it makes sense to go through more questions, but what I want to do is, if there are other questions that people have, just generally that they want to talk about, fire away. Yes?
Is the final just 2 hours long?
Yes.
Is it going to be jam-packed with...
It is a full 2 hours. I feel like it's a little bit easier than the midterm. That's what I usually hear from people, is that the midterm is tons of information for 3 hours. I mean, it's a lot to cover. The final, it's not shorter, I mean, in the sense that for the time period. It is shorter, but it's not shorter for the time period, but I think maybe people are just expecting it. You know, they know what to expect a little bit. I think it's just as challenging in that regard. And the idea is to cover the concepts. I mean, it's all about just making sure you should expect each major concept to show up somewhere on that exam. I'm not, trying to ignore any of the concepts. Everything's going to show up there somewhere. There's a little bit more multiple choice, I think, and there's a little bit of partnership, but say it's 85% S Corp and 15% partnership. So, and there's no partnership essays. It's just multiple choice for partnership. So, okay. Other questions? I'll talk a little bit more about the exam in class tomorrow too. Make sure everybody hears that stuff. Okay, I will still be here for a bit because what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload the stuff because I have a computer. So I'm going to start uploading things so that you guys will have all this stuff available to you. If you have any other questions, obviously stick around and ask me. I'll work with you guys until we've got that covered. Otherwise, remember, I am on a flight heading out of town next Tuesday. I have no problem doing phone calls from Orlando next Wednesday or even Thursday morning if people have specific questions they want to cover. But if you want to get a hold of me, I will still be in town on Monday. So, and through the weekend, let me know if there's questions you have, specific time that might work out. Just let me know. I don't think anybody's reached out. If you guys have enough of me, I would understand. But otherwise, I hope this was helpful.